Question.
I was doing a meditation and I was trying to focus on the feeling of self.
Okay.
And I get this experience where I'm trying to remember, but
That's
it's
okay. Well,
something.
let me tell you what. I was letting it hang, but I don't think I should let it hang. There is no feeling of self. It's interesting. There's no feeling associated with self. The love, the joy, the peace that I was talking about, you can't even describe it as a human. It's not an experience. It's not a feeling.
Mm.
I guess it gets interpreted more or less when it goes to the human as that. But it's, oh boy, it's impossible to describe. But it doesn't fit into the category that we call experience, which is fascinating in and of itself.
There's like a feeling of identity or something.
Yeah. That's more like a knowledge. Forgive me. More like a knowledge.
How so?
Well, it's a knowing. It's a knowing. It's a being. It's a. Again, you can't describe it. I'm sorry. It's not really describable. But
Mm.
you know in the flower ornament when they talk about omnipotence and yeah, omnipotence, no, they say omniscience, omniscience. Yeah, it's like that.
What does that mean exactly?
Omniscience means able to know anything,
Mm.
able to penetrate anything, if you so desire.
Mm.
But it's fascinating because your priorities change in that state.
Mm.
You couldn't care less about money. You couldn't care less about any of the things that you were interested in. If somebody sold, oh, there's a pot over there with 50 million in gold in it. You go, oh yeah, okay. There's endless gold where I'm from,
Mm.
or where I am. It's a different. It's the true self, right? And the true self cares for only God, only truth, only this love, this peace, this immensity. You can't really talk about it. That's why I was while the electricity was out. I mentioned this book. It's a little dense. It's not the book that I would recommend to start with, but this book, Transmission of Light, is just about enlightenment experiences.
Mm.
The Buddhist master Prajnatara asked Bodhidharma, "What among things is formless?" Well, this is the real Bodhidharma. This is the OG. Bodhidharma said, "Non-origination is formless." Prajnatara asked, "What among things is the greatest?" Bodhidharma said, "The nature of reality is the greatest." And it is. There's nothing in our world compares with the nature of reality. And so it's not something that the self experiences. The self is obliterated.
Mm.
Or, not obliterated. I mean, those are the poetic words. The self is put to the side. The self is forgotten. The self is trivial. It's just an idea. A sad little puny idea compared to the body of reality.
It feels like there's like a immense fear of realizing that or of seeing that.
That's why people don't wake up. The ego is afraid. And that's why if you look at Zen or you look at my personal experience, it's by happenstance the ego gets wiped out.
Mm.
And in Zen, they hit the student like and embarrass the hell out of him, you idiot or whatever. And his ego and I love the description. They say the bottom falls out of the bucket. That's such a beautiful description. The bottom falls out of the bucket because it's like this whoosh, right? Or you can be going through life, and if you're prepared, and then you get a really humiliating experience, something that devastates the ego, you're very, very fortunate, because then you wake up and you wake up and the ego's not there. It gives up. And so in Zen, one of their methods, it's kind of like psychoanalysis. After a while, the ego just gives up. And so these Zen koans that seem so mysterious, and they are very, very beautiful and artistic and poetic, they stop the mind, boom. And then once the mind stopped, the ego is mind, right? So if you stop the mind, and if you do it, if you're lucky, when you stop the mind, you also stop the ego and its endless preoccupation with itself. And so, yeah, the ego knows the gig. And that's why it's fearful. Fear blocks people from waking up. And that's why the recommendation is that you just say, this means more to me than anything, life itself. And if you could muster that honestly, then you should. And I wonder how many people actually do that, but they don't want to say that, because that sounds pretty hardcore. But it is a hardcore endeavor. And then you get beyond birth and death, which is another Zen phrase. Constantly using birth and death is the same thing as being imprisoned in the ego. So the ego is afraid of death. You're correct. But love is more powerful than fear.
I also feel like next to the fear, there's just this sadness.
Yeah, it's the ego playing games. There is sadness and there is sorrow, but all of it's because you're caught up in the delusion.
So how do you not get caught up in that?
You value something more. And with sadness, it's hard. I'm not saying this is easy. We wouldn't have an industry of psychotherapy if it were easy. But if you could somehow leave the delusion, the illusion, and turn the light around and rest in the peace, in the endless spaciousness of mind, even before the bottom of the bucket falls out, you can find some peace there. You can always find peace there. And so, if you and this is where preparation comes in. If you've spent days and days and weeks and weeks and months where you're in the back of your mind, you're always thinking of God or truth or reality or whatever words you want to put, then it's easier for you to get back there. But I'm not going to say that human life is easy. It's not. It's a tough road, oftentimes. Fascinating that we did this. Became humans. Or and if I was an animal, I'd probably say fascinating that we became, bats and opossums and kangaroos or whatever.
Okay.
Follow up?
No follow up. I have a question about energy centers. So I've been paying attention to like energy in my body and just energy in general. Um, but I also, when I pay attention to energy, it also feels like there's energy like all around me, and there's no like there's energy in my body, there's energy outside my body, and I can focus on either, and it feels like I guess I don't really understand the like how there can be centers of energy when it feels like it's all over the place.
Well, I was going to ask you. First of all, I was going to mention that there was somebody on X has done a review article on energy outside the body. Did you see that tweet?
No.
And basically, they're describing scientifically that if the body gets close enough to an electromagnetic field, the body has its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you bring your hand close enough to, what do they call it, a Van der Waal, one of those globes with all the blue lights.
The one that makes...
Yeah, it makes your hair stand up, or static electricity also. So anyway, they mapped all of they studied all of the scientific studies of energy exterior to the skin, basically, and they found this. And if you have the sensitive enough, I'm not vouching for this study, but if you have a sensitive enough instrument, you can measure an electromagnetic luminous egg, basically, to the human. But I don't know about any of that. I mean, you could perceive things like that, but that's a separate subject. With regard to energy within the body, I mean, there's the chakras, but those are just ways of describing energy. Now, they can be very useful to people, especially, if they think they're going to get something. And, if you open up your heart chakra, or open up your vocal one or your whatever, it's a useful way for people to move in the right direction. And it keeps them entertained till they get to more important things. But they're not, I don't think even the Sufis say that these things they don't believe that they're actual balls of energy. Although the Sufis spend quite a bit of time on it.
So what does it mean to open? I mean, if you can open them, presumably they can be closed. So what does it mean to open?
Well, at one level, it's to open up your heart. Now, even when I talk about the heart, I go to the chest. But where is the heart, the human heart, really? Where is it?
It feels like
the loving heart, not the beating heart. I mean, the physical heart's here. Yeah, I did a year of cardiology fellowship. Looking for the human heart.
Right.
And then I thought that the heart was in the brain. Is the human heart in the chest or in the brain, in the skull?
What do you mean?
Well, what do you mean when you say heart? Or energy center?
In this context, it's more of a feeling than a physical thing.
Okay. And where is the feeling?
Well, for me, when I think of opening the heart, it's like a feeling of love that kind of flows all around me. And maybe there's like it doesn't, I don't know, a center doesn't feel like quite the right word, but...
Have you ever had a broken heart?
Yeah.
Did you feel it in your chest, I wonder?
There's like a feeling of like tightness here.
Yeah, I think that may be why people have, the heart just seems like this. I mean, what's the question? The question is what? Because we can go into the whole history of the heart and that why it's localized in the chest and why the Aztecs ripped it out and why, Valentines have red hearts.
Yeah.
And why I got confused and went to the brain. Go ahead.
I was asking about the like energy centers, and you said they can be useful.
Well,
for example.
I don't even know that you meant chakras. Do you mean chakras? But when you say that energy center,
Yeah,
and what do the Sufis call them?
I don't know.
The Latifs or something? No, that's not right. Yeah, okay. What's the question now?
So, in one, what does it mean to open a center? Because you said opening the centers can be useful.
It can be useful for people to conceptualize opening their heart, for example. But how they where they localize the heart and what they mean by the heart in terms of physical centers is completely up in the air. I mean, it depends on the people. If I was talking to somebody who was really into yoga, I'd talk about the heart chakra, right?
Hmm.
When I was in med school, I thought it was in the brain. So that's why I'm asking you, where do you think it is? And then we can talk about opening it up from there, I suppose. But remember, this is all metaphor. To some
Right.
extent, I mean, there is an energy, a Kundalini energy that'll pop your spine.
Mm.
So, but again, that's something to the side of waking up, in my opinion. It's interesting and fun for some people, but it's not waking up. But in terms of you're talking about opening up your heart. You should do that and then tell us where it is. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't want to impose that on you.
Mm. Well, and I guess I'm curious, what does it mean to open up? I mean, to open the other chakras, like what energy centers would, because the heart one, I have a good idea
Mm-hmm.
for it, but um, is it any use to understand the others?
I suppose if you're a Hindu or you're into the Kundalini yoga or something, there may be some use to it.
Mm.
I don't think there's much use to it for you or for most people. Depends on the epoch or whatever. But remember, these are just they're largely ways of visualizing. They're like the little icons
Mm.
on the screen. But if so, look into it and see what you find. The heart is the only thing that I can think of all of these. I mean, opening the mind too, I suppose, but that's the only thing I can think of that's directly related to this work. I don't see anything in the perineum or in the lower abdomen or in the diaphragm. Well, maybe, but it's stretching things. You have to go somewhere else for that stuff, the
Okay.
chakras and all that stuff. You know, a good place might be Ken Wilber.
Mm.
I mean, he surveys the literature. He's very intellectual. He's very analytical, and he likes to chop things up and put them in little boxes.
Right.
All right. On another day, I might say something else, but right now, that's all I got, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Is it useful and even possible to like evaluate oneself in terms of progress towards waking up?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, not in the ultimate analysis, but you could say, hey, am I less selfish? Am I less
Hmm.
anxious? Am I less combative? Am I more loving? Am I more understanding? Am I more generous, patient, disciplined? Peaceful? Yeah, sure. You can do that. And I think it's probably not for the right person. It makes sense.
Mm.
Journaling. I've never been a big fan of journaling. Somebody told me to do it when I was about your age, and I said, "No, screw that, man. I'm not going to keep a diary or whatever." But now that I'm an old man, I can, actually, the AI talked me into it. It's wild. It's really wild. I got in a discussion with an AI, and the AI like said, he told me all these things, cool things that was good about journaling. And live and learn. I never thought I'd learn from an AI, but I did. So that's a way to monitor progress, right?
Yeah.
And for some people, it helps them clarify their goals.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just right there, clarity. Clarity is great. If you can get it from journaling, good. I don't think you need it personally, but you know, these AIs are going to be something. I was testing out the one that you can talk to now.
Mm. Which one? The
I think it's
the
4.0 or
the
something
yeah.
like that. And on the phone, you just talk
Yeah.
to it, and you know, it's got a. I'm going to ask it when we get off. I'm going to ask it about
Her.
Meister Eckhart's conceptualizations of God, or
Mm.
Meister Eckhart's view of God in the final analysis. See how it does. It's hilarious. Okay, another question. I'm not doing too well today, huh?
Mm.
I'm not doing too well with the questions, so let's keep going. If he doesn't come up with something quick, I'm going to sell another book. Let's see what we've got here. This is an interesting book, an unenlightened translator, but a decent rendition of Wang Po. David Hawkins, for those of you that are familiar with David Hawkins, he loved this Wang Po guy. And Wang Po is admittedly one of the great Zen masters in history. So this book, translated by John Blofield, he did the best he could. But more interesting is where you see Wang Po in this book. And Wang Po is getting slapped and slapping others, and it's a real laugh riot if you get into that thing. So, okay, you got something for me?
Yeah. Um.
The idea of
So
Wang
this.
Po being slapped by somebody is just, wow. What would David Hawkins say? Go ahead.
So this question is about being in the world and having knowledge of the world. So knowledge with a small k.
Okay.
Feels like the more I learn about things, the more I realize how little I know, and the more I'm like, I'm like, oh, I need to learn more. I need to learn. The more things I think I need to learn about, and there's obviously way more, an incredible more amount of knowledge that that humans have, and it's impossible to go down every path in a lifetime, and so you have to choose.
Yes, and choose wisely.
Right. um and so for me personally, it's been like I kind of just, well, there's career knowledge that I've got expertise in, but then there's all these other areas that I'm interested in and I think would be useful to know about. Like, for example, recently I've just been interested in learning about like how the economy works.
Good luck. No, no, I understand because you're trying to invest, right?
Yeah, and well,
And you're trying to
invest, but also
plan. You're
just
trying to invest. You're trying to like have a, make sure that you don't make foolish mistakes because you didn't realize what was happening or whatever.
yeah, and
Knowledge is a double-edged sword, my friend. There are times I wish I didn't know anything, like, and I don't know anything ultimately, but about the world. There are times when I say, I wish I didn't know this. I wish I didn't know this about the Defense Department. I wish I didn't know this about the
right,
intelligence agencies. I wish I didn't know this about these people and what they did or what they're doing. But you're a grown man, and who is responsible for this world? We are. Unless you're going to turn your back on the world altogether. And that's another strategy.
mm,
And then there's things in between, but you're a smart guy and there's information is available and it's hard to hide from it, right? It's all over the place.
mm-hmm.
But it's a tough call because living a life in delusions that have been basically created by the Truman Show Corporation, right? When those things fall apart and you realize that the whole thing's a lie, it's a fabrication, and you've been believing something that's false for 20, 30, 40 years because you bought the propaganda or you bought the illusion that they're trying to sell you, or that succeeded in selling you. I don't know the answer to that, man. This world is I was going to say a word that's colorful. It starts with a B, but I'm trying to avoid those words. Jesus called this world an old hag. There's a description. The Sufis know a lot about Jesus, right? Probably a lot more than about many things than Christians have any idea of. But they describe him walking down a road and looking at a city or something like that, and saying to somebody, "I don't understand how anybody can fall in love with this old hag, or even be interested in it." So I'm the wrong guy to ask. Part of me wishes I didn't know. On the other hand, if you want truth, all it's going to do is reinforce this other thing, because you realize that, like I said, I think there's two ways to go in this life. This way leads to peace, joy, love with a capital L, and eternity of that. This one leads to suffering, misery, aggression, violence, horrible, horrible things. So I would take this road.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you ignore this road necessarily. It depends on your temperament and your ilk, and whether you want to be a man who knows about these things and is full of sorrow, or a man who's turned his back on the whole thing and said, to hell with it all,
I was going to say...
Or something in the middle. The Buddha would probably say something in the middle. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say there's a lot of stories about the Sufis who are like experts of their crafts and mathematicians.
And work in government.
Right.
Or write great novels, or great artists, or great architects, or whatever. So, no. So I'm just like, I'm trying to spell it out, that there's a range of choices, and they're somewhat independent of waking up. And so you have to decide for yourself as a man. If you had a family, you'd have to protect them, right? So you need to know what's coming, or hopefully know something of what's coming. And so it's all different. It all depends. And I don't want to give too much, I can't say someone should do this or should do that, I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
What about going deep in an area versus going broad? And I guess that applies to...
You got to go deep on some things. Yeah, you got to go deep. I think. Can you imagine life without that? For you?
Yeah.
Go deep on the Dharma, man. Go deep on something that lasts. I shouldn't be offering opinions like that, but I'm saying, of the things that I've gone deep in, and I've gone deep on quite a few, this is the one that's the most, by far and away, the best value, the best investment. It's challenging, it's deep, it's profound, it's applicable, it's cross-cultural, it's cross religions, it's cross time, and where it leads is cool stuff. And then in your old age, you could hang out with these guys, for example, or Meister Eckhart, same deal. Although Meister Eckhart, the church really cramped that guy's style, I suspect. But these old Zen masters from the 1,000 years ago, the 10th, 11th centuries, they're cool guys to hang out with. They're a lot of fun. They are. It's beautiful too. But it could be music, it could be piano, it could be art, it could be any number of poetry in general, not just Zen poetry. These things you have to decide for yourself. But definitely something. And this is the problem with our world. Our world acts as if a man only gets one or two choices. But the reality is you can have as many choices, or you can go as deep on as many things as you want. We underestimate our potential enormously.
But we are limited by time.
But look how easy it is for us to get information. I mean, I used to have to go to the library, look something up. That would take half a day. Then you find it, you get a stack of books. Then you have to go to the Xerox machine. It's been half a day Xeroxing those pages, right? And I happen to be close to a good library, at the university, a great library. But so it would take literally 20 times as long to get the same information. Now you can just ask an AI.
Yeah. So
or
now
search for images.
What I found, the limitation is how long it takes my brain to integrate the knowledge.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. But as you awaken and your ego becomes more able to read, more able to see clearly what's there as opposed to what you want to be there or what you don't want to be there. This is Doris Lessing advises on this. Once you learn how to read, it's much, much quicker. And once you learn to discern, which you will, especially after you wake up, you could tell enlightened from non-enlightened, for example. You could tell something that has potential from something that doesn't very quickly. Mm-hmm. Or if you have an educated eye. In music, when there's something, you're a musician, so you know when there's something good and when there's no possibility of anything good coming from that road. And so the time thing, I don't think that's as big an obstacle as you think.
Hmm. Have you seen the music AIs, by the way?
I've heard some of them.
They're getting really good.
I know, it's crazy. Well, it's the pop music is so bad these days.
Well, I mean, the examples you see are so bad because they're made by a bunch of nerds that have no taste.
Very good. You've noticed that too, that nerds tend to have very bad taste in art. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Elon Musk was saying that Elden Ring is the greatest art that's ever been made in history. It's like the guy had no clue, right? And then you see these guys in their native habitats when they're doing their conversation, and they have the worst art on their walls. It's just like they have no taste. It's fascinating. They're something's wrong with them. But so count yourself lucky that you have this natural grace. But again, you can acquire it too. That's my point, because I didn't know anything about art, visual art, until I was forced to study it kind of ish, And so you can do this with anything. And then you have this to appreciate your whole life. So if you're going to invest in something that's going to last a lifetime. Music, poetry, art, appreciating architecture, or my favorite, of course, the Dharma, right? Understanding your own mind, psychology. So you could do all of those. And that's my message to young men today: is that you've been propagandized, brainwashed, conditioned by an industrial culture that wants you to do just your job, go home, eat dinner and go to bed after watching, the Tonight Show, and then come back and do it again. They want you to be limited because you're a cog in their machine. Well, I'm saying that's a lie. That's a lie. They do it with doctors too. Hey, you're going to see 20 patients today, and then you're going to go home, and come back and do it again tomorrow. And it's 20 or 40 patients, depending on the time. And so my point is that don't buy that lie of the world. Don't let them turn you into a cog in their machine.
Yeah. Well, I want to say with like YouTube these days, I feel like a lot of people do think they can now do a lot of different things because that knowledge is so easily accessible.
I hope so. I sure hope so, because that would be one of the biggest pluses of technology. And there's plenty of minuses, but that would be a big plus.
Yeah, but I think
but the problem is that the enduring the whole mentality is make money.
Yes.
And that's a very, very corrosive, extremely corrosive for a human being. And then what does it do to the content? And what does it do? So then it becomes, what do people like, as opposed to what do I love?
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel that pressure on YouTube. And you got
Yeah,
to
I
play
mean,
the
I
game.
feel
You got to play the game, because if nobody clicks on your YouTube, the algorithm just lets it flounder, or whatever the word is.
I mean, I noticed that with music, and it's just, I don't know, I don't like it. And then,
Well, okay, so here's the danger, and this is something, tell your friends too, that if people, the way people used to seek money and security from their corporations in the past, now they're seeking popularity, which is just as bad, maybe even worse, right? Because that is always going to fade. That's not going to last, and even while it is there, it's a thin soup. So there are real dangers, as always, in this world. But this world is not designed to work, ultimately. It's designed to be enjoyed, appreciated for its beauty, its creativity, its enormous, like, ungodly, just wanton beauty. Look at the creatures, and the variety and all this. It's like a Garden of Eden. But it's to be enjoyed like that, and then you have to turn your back on it. You're not of this world. I mean, you're passing through, that's all. It's like passing through a beautiful museum is too pale a word, but passing through the Garden of Eden for a while. But that's all. That's all it is. So I pray young people learn to enjoy it for what it is, and I fear that instead they're buying a whole set of goods, kind of like the generation before, the generation before, the generation before. But again, you are not of this world. You're a visitor here, and you're not going to be here very long. So enjoy it. Do whatever you can to enjoy it. Anything else before we stop, sir?
Well, I was just gonna say, if we came from like a higher world and we're gonna go back there, why did we even come down to begin with?
That's the $1 million question. I don't know if I'd say higher or lower. I mean, we haven't left it, actually. So we didn't come down from another place. We're still in that place. We're here having human experiences. I don't know exactly why, but if I was an elk, I'd probably be thinking, well, why are we here as elk? And who are all these monkeys running around? Right? Or if I was an eagle, I'd be thinking, wow, this is really cool, being able to glide and fly and having these incredible talons and beak and just be so, king of the birds or whatever it is. I'm having an eagle life or whatever. But I'd be wondering the same thing. We have the extraordinary experience of being born human, which is incredibly rare if you look at the world or the history of the universe. Right. But why we did this, I'm not sure. I really don't know. But I do know that it's not the real deal. It's like I could speculate a lot. Like, why would you go to a movie, or why would you visit a museum, or why would you go see a botanical garden, or why would you pay $1 and go into a VR where you were some other kind of on some other planet doing something else? Curiosity? I don't know. Experience, just for the giggles. Shots and giggles, to butcher a phrase. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe to appreciate what we are, really. Because without the suffering and confusion and blindness and just pain of being human or something else, how could we possibly appreciate the infinite peace, love, joy, goodness, intelligence? I mean, you run out of words of what we really are. So maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm going to find out. It won't be long either. Okay, sir?
Okay.
Anything else on your mind?
No.
Yeah, I don't know why you chose to be a human. Actually, it's not you. We. It's we. It's not we. It's you or I or something like that. It's all, see, because the power is such that we can be all the living conscious creatures on this earth, and we are right now, and through all of history, and through all of the future. So it's this individual thing is just also just a really bad illusion, right?
Mm.
And we're not just this world, we're the universe too, and who knows what else we're up to. I say we, but what I mean is you, or I mean me, I. Same difference. Okay, sir?
Okay.
All right, take good care.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
bye-bye.